class and social slime, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one makes countries laugh to your face, fight and die, 'cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower class and social side, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. See the shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one leaves countries, lie to your face, fight and die, 'cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On. This is UCY.TV, the best little network on the internet. Today's August the 30th, 2015, and it's Game On. Before I get going here too much today, I want to give a shout out to one of my listeners, D. Light out of Sudbury, Ontario. Now, she did something I think is rather unique and highly intelligent. And I don't know how many of the listeners are on Facebook, but I want to throw this in here right at the beginning. And if you are on Facebook, I want you to go look at this. This is freaking brilliant. Now, what Dee did was she did up a newspaper. This is a beautiful picture, man. It's got a cup of tea or coffee, some kind of a cinnamon roll, some cream, and a newspaper. And on the newspaper, it says the evolution of the revolution. And right smack on the front page of that newspaper is UCY.TV. And she has the Sunday lineup listed for UCY.TV. Now, if you're on Facebook, I put the link in there. I want you to grab this. And I want you to shove this to everybody you know on Facebook, to every group or page that you're attached to on Facebook. I want this on your timeline on Facebook. Okay? We have got to promote this network. I mean, everybody appreciates the listeners, but we got to bring the level of listenership, if you will, up on UCY.TV. I've been on a lot of different networks and that over the years, and I want to say that this is the first network that I truly would call home, and I'm very appreciative to be part of UCY.TV. So again, I'm going to dump that in right again. And I'm going to dump it in several times throughout the day. Like I said, if you're on Facebook, grab it. and shove it out there far and wide. So today I want to talk a little bit about a news story I saw in the Toronto Sun when I went to get my coffee. This was a headline. Now, the Toronto Sun, for those who don't know what goes on up here north, the Toronto Sun is the conservative, the right-wing paper, and we have papers that are centrist, which is third way, and then we have some liberal papers up here. So it's just like your politics, your democracy, which is to keep the commoners divided. That's the purpose of these newspapers, to keep the commoners, you and I, the subjects, the citizens, those subservient to the state, confused and arguing amongst ourselves all the time, while they, the state, carry on with their nonsense. Anyways, I found this story particularly interesting. Oakville mayor sorry for tweets comparing veterans to Nazis and mercenaries. Oakville Mayor Rob Burton apologized Saturday for a highly offensive tweet comparing Canadian military vets to mercenaries and Nazis. The Conservative Party employs former soldiers as unarmed security to help with crowd control at campaign events. Burton, a Liberal supporter, faced a massive Twitter backlash and calls for his resignation after he linked the Tory security to historic atrocities. Any political parties that had private police using veterans before, Burton tweeted Friday night, including links to Wikipedia article on Adolf Hitler's brown shirts and Mussolini's black shirts. Any political parties had private police using veterans before as a hashtag, I guess. And then it goes on to say down here, this did go too far. Calling vets mercenaries is despicable. You, sir, should be ashamed, responded Steve, somebody, on Twitter. Burton tweeted back, my friend, the problem is what he's doing, not whom he's using. Is that dark enough crayon for you? In response to another Twitter user who mentioned the mercenaries' comment, Burton said, you can't read. I didn't call the vets anything. I linked to news Conservative leader Stephen Harper got private police for his political party. Burton finally backed down Saturday afternoon and said, I apologize to all vets for my remarks, he tweeted. I regret any impact on their feelings or pride. I celebrate they went to fight for freedom. So, the average person that's going to read this, the average man, woman that would read this, well, I better get finished at the bottom here first. He wrote he deleted the offensive tweet to spare more pain. He also appeared on CTV News Channel to repeat his apology. A spokesman with the NDP said the party doesn't use private security in addition to the RCMP officers assigned to leader Tom Mulcair. The Liberal Party didn't respond to requests for comment on security arrangements. The Toronto Sun attempted to contact Burton multiple times, but he didn't respond by press time. So this is another case of a lot of mixed messages in here. Some of them are totally true, and some of them are totally false. But I'm going to put this also in the chat because I'm going to dissect this for a second. There's a picture here of Burton sitting at a table with the leader of the Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau. So now we have two hits here. Okay, we have a hit against the Conservatives, the right-wing party, for using vets as a private police. And on the other hand, we have a shot at the Liberals for having this mayor, who is a Liberal supporter, sitting at the table with the leader of the federal Liberal Party, who had put this statement out. So now we got a shot at the Conservatives and a shot at the Liberals. What does that do? That lets the NDP come up the middle. Okay, guarantee you that the NDP will be elected the federal government at the end of this election in October. There's a reason for it. Anyways, which brings me back. I'm going to put this into the chat first. If you are not in the chat and you're just listening to this, you can just Google Toronto Sun, Oakville mayor sorry for tweets comparing veterans to Nazis, or Oakville mayor Nazis, and I'm sure you'll bring a story up. But there's all kinds of problems with this particular story, as there is with all stories in the newspapers. They're constructed fraud, I guess. They're constructed deception, and deception is fraud, so I suppose it's a fraud. And it brings me to a post, which I'm going to post. And I made a post way back in 2008 on my blog called Beware, the Green Shirts Are Here. And in that, I sound a lot like Burton, the mayor of Oakville. Mussolini had his black shirts. Hitler had his brown shirts. Now we have to deal with the UN green shirts, and they are every bit as dangerous. So from stateside, I have Al Gore and David Suzuki from Canada, just a few of the front men. And it's funny because down here somebody had left a note. You have hit the nail on the head. Al Gore is America's politician, the Green Fascist Global Political Party, the Green Shirts. Obama is so ignorant he will lead America into the movement without a fight. Well, that's not quite right because Obama is a player. And there's another note here that says, at first sight, most people would say that this is pretty extreme analogy, but if one literally soaks themselves into researching, and this one I was posting about the wind turbines coming to North America. If one soaks themselves in researching the wind phenomenon, they will very quickly come to the same realization that we poor residents' democratic rights are almost zero. To claim ignorance by the above men is coming to realize that they didn't know the true mandate of the wind industry should buy them all jail terms. The whole wind industry was started by Enron, and where are they now? And it's true. While it wasn't the first instance of wind here in North America did come out of Enron, and the fracking came out of Enron. The gas came out of Enron. This was all set up. It was all templated on how to install the wind here. But back to that story for a second. He's actually correct. The mayor of Oakville is absolutely correct in his assessment of the vets. Now, if you're a vet and you're listening to this, please understand what I'm about to say, okay? There's no need to get all ticked off and crazy. This is just history, and it's a history you probably have no idea about. When you joined the Army because you thought you were there to protect the country and the people and all this kind of stuff. Nothing could be further from the truth, okay? You got hoodwinked, just like we've all been hoodwinked. Okay. In reality, everyone who joins the Army, all of the police, and in Canada here it is the OPP, which are provincial police, and the RCMP, which are federal police, and the Army. Every one of these entities take an oath to the state, not the people. The government is not the state. Okay? The state is the company. And in that sense, yes, you can be compared to mercenaries. You are paid by the state company to do the bidding of the state. and protect the state and advance the cause of the state through a military fashion. So in that sense, yes, all veterans are mercenaries or ex-mercenaries. And that is not, I'm not being, talking down to the vets by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just trying to explain that you are a subject of the state, just like the rest of us. They call us citizens now. Citizen is interchangeable with subject, and subject is subservient to the state, making you a mercenary. Who are the vets protecting? They're protecting the government leader. The government leader is subservient to the state. Okay? And that's who you're protecting. You shouldn't be protecting these people. You should be protecting the people. You are one of us. And the military and the police have got to get that through their thick skulls. You are not different than us. You, like us, through the deceptions and frauds in the construction of our states, our countries, are all subservient. So, I've said it before, you're acting the role as the house nigger on the plantation. The house nigger on the plantation was just as subservient as the field worker who was enslaved on the plantation. But through flattery in that, flattery is a very powerful tool. Through flattery in that, a certain number of the workers on the plantation were given the idea that they were smarter or better than the average plantation worker, and that they could have benefits that the average plantation worker, citizen, subject, those subservient in the field, and bring you up to a level above your fellow slaves if you do the bidding of the plantation owner, which is the state. So you've broken the trust of your fellow plantation workers, if you will. And that's treasonous. A breach of trust is really the definition of treason. Everyone in government, everyone in the forces, have breached the trust of the people. Now, those in government know exactly what they're up to. Most of the people that join the police forces and the army and that have very, if any, clue what the hell they're even involved in. They believe they're there to protect the country. They believe they're there to serve the people. Well, all they got to do is read their oath and they'll realize that they serve the state. The state is the company. That's who they serve. But through flattery and that, most of them don't pay any attention to what it is they're even taking an oath to. They're getting the job. They're going to get a pretty good paycheck out of this. It's not till they come back, until they're done their mercenary duties, do those in the armed forces realize, and still some of them don't realize, or they wouldn't be up there protecting the CEO of the company. They wouldn't be doing that. But, the United States is a banger example, and it's the same thing up here, although it's more in your face down stateside because you have more veterans down there than we do. You're involved in more mercenary work than we are up here. I read a thing that 5,500, 5,600 American servicemen and women were killed in Iraq. But 128,000 have committed suicide since. You've destroyed these people. When the vets come home, and I remember after the vets that came home from the Vietnam War was an in-your-face example of how badly they were treated. but they don't need your services anymore. Okay? You know, you're the cannon fodder. You did the job that the state wanted you to do. You got the job done for the company, which is the state, and they don't need you anymore. You wonder why you're treated so rotten? I mean, they class you as cannon fodder. So what is it you expect when you get home? But that's not, see, they use that damn flattery again. You know, you're protecting the country, you're protecting the people. All lies. All the time. So, it gets worse with this guy, this Burton guy, because he is a green shirt. So while he's complaining about the vets and comparing them to mercenaries and Nazis, he is a mercenary and a Nazi, if that's, I will just use his terms. Because that post that I put in, Beware the Green Shirts, way back in 2008. I can't believe it's that friggin' long ago. But he is a green shirt. So while he's trying to point the finger at the conservatives for using vets to protect the leader of the Conservative Party, the Prime Minister, during this election period, he himself is exactly what he's complaining that the vets are. He is a brown shirt, he is a black shirt, he is a green shirt. And he's part of the third way. Now, I brought up the third way a little bit last night because I mentioned this last night on the show on Revolution Radio, is that the one NDP MP was knighted, the Order of Orange, which is how the Protestants get to be a Knight of Malta, and then he's a proponent of the Third Way, and he's from Nova Scotia. Well, if you look at a map of Nova Scotia, you will see that Nova Scotia is basically split down the middle, for long ways, and they're pushing everybody off the east or off the west side. I guess that's northwest, way that Nova Scotia said, northwest side, whatever. They're pushing everybody off that side as they rewild it. And they're pushing all the population into the other side, which is the Halifax side and that. Now, Halifax used to be the main city in Nova Scotia. Halifax, the city, doesn't exist anymore. It's the greater region of Halifax, or whatever they call it now, just like the greater region of Sudbury. And it's a regionalization, it's a Sovietization of our lands. So it stands to reason, because they're pushing the orange wave, the orange crush is what they're calling it here, to put the NDP into power. So what we see constantly is the jamming at the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, and leaving the NDP party, which is the Orange Party, completely untouched. Okay? And this is psychological again, because the people who vote really don't know anything about politics for the most part. And they are people who, whatever's popular, they run with it, because the media tells them to run with it, and they put stories in about the other two parties, which people discuss in the coffee shops and that. Did you hear what that guy said from Oakville? That mayor? And he supports Justin Trudeau, that damn liberal. His daddy was a communist, you know. Well, that's true. Well, I ain't voting for them. And that Harper, he's destroying the country. Well, I ain't voting for him. What's it leave? It leaves the NDP. So expect an NDP, at the very least minority, likely a majority government come October. I would be very, very surprised if it turns out any other way. People complain constantly that the conservatives are anti-green. Well, what are the Conservative Party doing here and have been doing for years and years and years? They have taken part of the gas tax and they send it down to the municipal level as long as that gas tax is used to push forward Agenda 21. And yet the other parties are complaining that the Conservatives are anti-environment. Okay, so it's all smoke and mirrors. So that's where we are with that. But, you know, let's see, I got to find that. Okay, Mayor Rob Burton is, let's see, Mayor of the town of Oakville, Rob Burton. And this is why I keep saying you got to get to the local level. You know, the local level is where your feet are on the ground. This is where you live in the local level. You don't live at the state level. You don't live at the federal level. You live in a community which is controlled by a town, municipality, whatever you call it, wherever you live. And these are the people that are champions of Agenda 21. And all the money they receive from either the state, province, or the federal level is specifically tagged to use to push Agenda 21, the green movement, the third way, into your communities without you knowing what they're up to. Because they never come out and tell you right up what they're up to. They're building bicycle paths and they're building green spaces, and they've all put that development border zone around your community where you can't build out, so you have to build higher and higher density, so on and so forth. So these people, this guy who calls the vets mercenaries and Nazis, this guy is a mercenary himself because he's doing the bidding of the state. And the state does not have your interest at heart. You can bank on that one. You know, so this guy, you know, he's full of crap. These guys even gone so far. Council is moving. This is his council, Oakville, Ontario. He's a Liberal supporter. Council is moving forward on our path to more livable and sustainable future. We're controlling growth. That's the containment border around your town. Saving green space and keeping up with the town's needs, all while keeping increases to taxes and public debt lower than before. We have a vision. Now, this is getting wild. This particular town, Oakville, this mercenary of the state, of pushing you Agenda 21, this is the farthest out I've seen the vision so far. They actually have a vision statement now out to 2057. Okay? And that's your urban planners and everybody working what your town's going to look like in 2057. By 2057, if they have your way, their way, you will not own a home. You will not own a private vehicle. These are all things that are not sustainable. You know, and people get caught up in this rhetoric of, oh, well, we're building a sustainable community. Our community is more sustainable than your community. We've got better bike paths than you do. We have more green space, and we have a better use of land than you do. And everybody has the same statement. They're all striving to build the most livable community. This is your false utopian. So they're all pushing the same thing, same template. Everybody wants to have more green energy in their municipality than the next guy. And there's nothing sustainable about this green energy nonsense. Absolutely nothing sustainable. There's nothing sustainable about destroying the right of property. There's nothing sustainable about forcing you out of your private vehicle. There's nothing sustainable about jamming you into high-density housing near a rail track. Sounds like something Stalin or Mussolini might have pulled off, maybe Hitler. But those were all players and puppets, just like the mayor of Oakville is a player and a puppet. So this is the kettle calling the pot black, or the pot calling the kettle black, however that saying works out. Now, I saw an interesting clip this morning, and I don't get a lot of time to research because these shows keep coming at me awful fast. And I was away all day yesterday in London to a funeral, so I'm kind of running here a little bit. But I did see a clip out of Fresno, California this morning. And I found it particularly interesting because the Oakville vision statement has a thing in there called shifting gears. And I saw, and this is about transportation. So I found a video out of Fresno, California this morning discussing shifting gears, because these are all templates. So you can find basically the same title of this guy's vision statements all over the place. So how is it Oakville's vision statement when Fresno, California has the same freaking vision statement? How's that possible? It's a template. Anyways, in that video, they were talking about how poor Fresno is, and they have it's a talk about transportation and that, and how that we need to pave the paths along the rail tracks and that to use for bicycles and whatnot. Hamilton, Ontario has a shifting gears program as well. And Hamilton is a very interesting town because it was a steel town. It was a union town. All the unions are pushing Agenda 21, the UN, and they basically really were at the forefront of this third way green revolution, which you can boil down to First World War was a bombing war. Second World War was a bombing war. And the third war, the third way, which is the third war, the third world war, because this is global what's going on here, is a psychological and spiritual war. Okay? For the most part, at least in the West, it's a psychological, spiritual war. So, but in that video of from Fresno, the guy said a very interesting thing, the promoter of it, these bike paths and that. He said, until it has been given credence, that's not the exact words, but by science, it's just someone's opinion. In other words, what he's saying is that, if we're promoting bike paths or wind turbines or water restrictions or, use less hydro attitude, if a council or something says that's what they want to do, it's just their opinion. Until it's backed up by verbiage of scientists, until that happens, it's just an opinion. Once these scientists promote it, then it's accepted as a necessary reality, which brings me back to an old book I found that, and it's on my Facebook somewhere. I don't remember what it's called, but in that it says how they went to science. They turned the scientists into the new priests. Okay, and just like the priests of old, you weren't to question what the priest said. Okay, they bring down a doctrine or whatever or decree, and you follow that. You don't question them because they are the intelligent ones, the enlightened ones. They know what's going on. You don't, so follow what they say. And in that book, they said that they had to kill God off because they couldn't bring ecology in, which came in at the same time in the mid-19th century, which is the same time as Darwinism, that ecology could not be moved forward as long as God existed, because God gave man dominion over his creation, and the ecology is praise the creation, not the creator, and so that's a complete flip over of what we were taught, way back when. But they kept the religious thing going, even though in the background they were trying to kill it. And that's when they infiltrated the churches. And the churches, which used to be not part of the state, became part of the state through tax exempts and that. So the churches actually became agents of the state. So while they were still preaching out of the Bible, there's a psychological shift taking place over the years. And now we've gotten to the point where, if a preacher doesn't want to marry a gay couple, he's in serious trouble. Well, how could that possibly happen? Well, through psychology. Psychology is a very, very powerful tool. Unlike a large caliber weapon, it won't take you out immediately, but it will take the whole place down eventually if the psychology is applied properly. And that's what they've been doing for decades and decades and decades and decades. So, to Mr. Burton here, Mayor of Oakville, Ontario, bite me. You ought to be in jail. Freaking criminal, man. There isn't a mayor in this country, or in the United States, or in Australia, or in New Zealand, or in Britain, or in Germany, or Italy, or anywhere else that is not a criminal, because they're all involved in deception. And I don't know how many times I got to say it. Deception is fraud. And fraud is both illegal and unlawful. Okay? It causes harm to people. Now, we got to get the word out at the local level somehow. But as I've been saying of late, I am absolutely smiling at how many people, if not awake, are open now to information that they would have just run away from just a couple of years ago, a year ago even. It's freaking amazing. I went to that funeral yesterday. My wife's aunt lived a very healthy, intelligent 92 years. And one more character gone, man. I mean, I liked that lady. She was pretty cool, man. Said what was on her mind, and if you didn't like it, not her problem. Not one of these politically correct sheep. And she would argue her point, and now that's healthy. And butting heads is a very healthy thing. When people don't want to butt heads, and, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I don't want to hear this, you got trouble. We're in big trouble. But, on the way down there was 5 of us went down, and I remember just a couple of years back, I would try to bring up what was important, and nobody wanted to hear it. They would change the subject. Oh, that's that conspiracy shit, I would hear. And so yesterday on the ride down, I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm just kind of relaxing, watching the countryside go by, this overpopulated countryside, which I couldn't find any population in the countryside, so I don't know how they get off on saying it's overpopulated. But then again, that's psychology. But on my way down there, I'm just sitting there looking out the window. And it's not I that's bringing up some of these things now. It's the other people in the vehicle. And that bloody well amazed me. Now, when they would start talking about stuff and they weren't quite hitting it on the head, then I could interject and just clear that any misconception up, or if they were off the template a little bit, clear that up for them. But it wasn't me telling them now. I was just simply filling in some holes for them. They were the ones that were bringing up these subjects because their hydro bills are going through the ceiling, their water bills are going through the ceiling, right? They see all this corruption right in front of their faces now, but they just don't have the entire background. So I found that rather both interesting and amusing and heartening. And when we were at the funeral, after the funeral, we were having a little reception there and having something to eat and whatnot. And so there's a lot of people I haven't seen there for a long time. And a lot of those people always looked at me as some kind of a radical, somebody who would bring up subjects the other people didn't want to discuss. This is like 30 years ago or more. And so, I was just kind of hanging there, and I was talking to my wife's last aunt on that side of the family, who is 89 now, and just as sparky, man, oh man, this lady can move. And, she sat down beside me. We haven't seen each other for a while, and we always like to joke around together, and she's an intelligent woman. And we're sitting there, and she says, "Is that your coffee?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Would you like a coffee?" "Yeah, I think so." I said, "Well, what do you want in it? I'll go make it for you." And she said, "I'm more than capable of making my own coffee. Besides, I know how I like it." I mean, she sprung out of her chair, and she's across the floor making her coffee. She's an 89-year-old woman. More get up and go than most 30-year-old people got these days. But then she's farm stock, very small little lady, very frail now. Or she looks frail, but she don't move frail. Man, she freaks me out. Smiling all the time, great sense of humor, sharp as a freaking tack. And so, I'm really enjoying this visit with her. And, a lot of the people my age there, who always looked at me as kind of radical because of my views in that, they started bringing things up, which allowed me to explain to them some of what they didn't quite understand. And they all sat there quietly and listened. It blew me freaking away. This is a good sign. This is a phenomenal sign. And this goes back to that Mandel House supposed quote, right? Even if 1 in a million figure out what we've constructed here, we still got plausible denial. Well, not in my wildest imagination did I think some of those people that were quite involved in the conversation we were having yesterday would have had the capacity to get there. And there they are. So this idea of 1 in a million, we've got plausible denial, is dead in the water. It's over. And I've always said that, see, a bombing war, you go in and you strike hard and you strike fast. The psychological war is a slow, methodical method of propaganda. But they pick global warming as their main driver. Climate change is their main driver for the psychological war. Only it didn't get warmer. We're in a cooling cycle now. By 99, when Rockefeller said our window of opportunity has already begun to close, we did have some extremely hot years back in the late 80s and that. But that was because of the change in the ocean currents, which you can read, The Sea Around Us. You can pick up that book on my blog, canadiantruths.wordpress.com. Just punch in The Sea Around Us, Rachel Carson. And that fully explains the warming of the oceans, the melting of the ice long, long time ago. And those researchers were back then were just trying to figure out what was going on. Why'd the ice melt? Where did the fish stocks go? They didn't have an ulterior motive at the time to use that knowledge for anything other than knowledge. But knowledge is power. And so those with the knowledge knew about the ocean cycles and the warming of the oceans and the melting of the ice. They also had a solar maximum at the same time, which compounded the heating. And they picked that as their driver in this psychological war. Problem is that, and I've said this many times, is that propaganda only has a shelf life of so long. You know, you can look at the Idle No More, you can look at the Tea Party, you can look at Occupy movement. These are very short-term pieces of propaganda that were shoved hard and fast and died hard and fast. But they hung on to the climate change because that was the main mechanism that they chose to push the propaganda for the need for high-density housing, the need to get rid of personal vehicles, the social justice movement. All of these things are completely attached to climate change. While very few people now believe, other than the media who keeps spewing it out, and they don't believe it either, they're just paid to spew it out, the politicians who are agents of the state, who are mercenaries of the state, are pushing it. But other than that, the average man or woman now, you talk to them on the street after these cool summers we've had and these miserable winters we've had the last few years, all of a sudden this climate change thing doesn't really hold a lot of water. So you end up getting more ridiculous stories all the time coming out of the media. And the more ridiculous the story, the more it alerts the people that these people are crazy. So their main mechanism has failed. Now we, the people, need to, I suppose, I'm not into petitions and I'm not into protesting, but it wouldn't hurt to pick up the phone and phone your mayor or your deputy mayor or the CAO, what do they call it down stateside, the town director or whatever they call them down there. And because those guys are the ones that are really schooled. They're not elected people. Those are the ones that run your local council. And they're the ones that are absolutely trained in how to implement Agenda 21 without the knowledge of the people. So you could phone up your CAO of your local council or your local town and just tell them that you get it. We understand what you're up to. And we're not putting up with it. So back off. Now, I keep saying that we got to keep talking, keep teaching, and keep shining the light. Now, while I, and I'm sure all the other hosts on UCY.tv, very much appreciate the listenership here, which I do, but you, a listener here, also have an obligation to get out there and teach and talk and shine the light. A lot of people feel intimidated to phone up somebody in the role of a mayor or a CAO or a state senator or a premier or the prime minister's office. They feel intimidated, and that's how you're supposed to feel, because you're supposed to be a subject which is subservient to those I'm asking you to call. And if you want to remain subservient, then you will not call. You will not write the letter to them. If you want this to stop, then you will pick up the telephone and you will write them the letter and not ask them to stop. Just tell them, we get it. Okay? We get it. The curtain's pulled back, Mr. Oz. We get it. And it's time you stopped it. You have to put the fear of the people into these groups. Because if they don't think that you get it, they're just going to keep on doing it. And it's the old story. You say, okay, so you phone the mayor, or you write the letter, and you explain that you get it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 letters. They're going to go, well, there's a couple people out here that are getting it. No problem. We still have plausible deniability. This is the whole point. We have to show them that they do not have plausible deniability. They cannot use the conspiracy card any longer. Okay? It's not a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy. Period. And they are working against your best interests. And they're doing it through deception. So there isn't a mayor out there that isn't involved in fraud. Fraud's against the law. And we have to point that out to them in no uncertain terms. This is where the fight is being waged. And this is where the fight is going to be won or lost. Right in your own local community. Period. And we got to get on them. I mean, I'm on them constantly. I'm on a first name basis with most of the ministry people in the ministries, be it energy or environment or the premier's office or whatever. These people know exactly who I am. In fact, they've started to compliment me on the depth of my knowledge, because I'm talking to them and I'm trying to teach them and I'm trying to shine the light on what they're actually up to, because most of them really don't know. That most of them have come up through the same school system everybody else did and were told things, didn't question the things they were told, and actually believed, just like the vets in that believed that they were protecting the country and the people in the country from some threat. Because they didn't question anything. So we do have a big job, because this is the third way, and it is a psychological, spiritual war. And we have to basically, I like to call it, I mean, I've done this, it's helped a lot of people who've been in fights, that if you have morals, if you're a moral man or a woman, then you must mount your moral high horse. You don't negotiate with these people, ever. There's nothing to negotiate. They are causing harm. Stop it. And we just need a lot of riders. People who can mount that horse and make a conscious decision they ain't getting off it. And they will try to negotiate you off of it through flattery, mostly through flattery. And flattery is really a deception. Flattery is used to deceive. And you don't go there. You're smarter than that. You're so much smarter than the mayor or the council members or the CAO. You are far superior mentally than they are. But we always have this psychological barrier that they're somehow smarter or better than you are. That's one of the major tools that have been used against you for centuries. That they are somehow higher than you are. Well, they're not higher than you are. They can't be higher than you are. They're sitting at a desk scheming. You're saddled up in your moral high horse. There's no way they can possibly be higher than you are. It's impossible. There's nothing more powerful than the truth. These people don't live. They don't live in the land of truth. They live in the land of lies and deception. That puts them in a far weaker position than you are, mentally and morally. They can attempt to defend their deceptions for the so-called public interest or the so-called greater good. Well, the public interest is the interest of the state. The greater good is the good of the state. Has nothing to do with you whatsoever. You, remember, are a subject of the state. You are subjective to the state. You are lower than the state. You are a slave of the state. You are an asset of the state. We got to get back. This sounds corny almost, by the people, for the people, but that's a very true statement. Now, I got looking around last night after the show I did on Revolution Radio, which was late because I had a long day yesterday, but, I was talking about the Jesuit Pope coming to America. And I went looking, and I got thinking about it, I was discussing this at the funeral actually yesterday, about how we're constructed. Now, the Hudson's Bay Company here in Canada is a templated construction from the East India Company. Anybody that knows much about American history knows that the original setup was the East India Company, the Virginia Company, but these are all templated off the East India Company. But then up here, when they rebranded the Hudson's Bay Company into the Government of Canada, they said, we have given you responsible government. We've created responsible government. Well, who created this responsible government? For whose benefit? It's the same as the United States. We've given you a republic. Well, who gave you the republic? Who were these guys that gave you the republic? So, I just Googled around a bit last night, Jesuit connection to the United States, and I was reading some stuff in there of the Jesuit Masonic connection to the formation of the United States. And I haven't had a lot of time to delve into that yet, but I wish somebody would, or there's someone, I'm sure there's lots of hosts here on UCY.TV who are American, who have studied this very diligently and can explain exactly what this republic that was given you really means. Now, up here in Canada, they call it responsible government. Well, the government here, the legislature here, they create acts. And they do the same thing down in the States. And an act is just something done. And okay. Sorry about that. I just got a message came in there. But anyways, so, the responsible government here, you would think, okay, a responsible government would be responsible to the people, but a responsible government is responsible to the state, or the rebranded East India Company, Hudson's Bay Company, if you will. So when they say responsible government, and this lit up a lot of eyes yesterday. Uh, if it's a responsible government, what kind of a responsible government would create these arm's length agencies that are untouchable by the government who created them? How is that responsible? Why would a responsible government create a police force that is not accountable to the government that created it? How is that responsible? How would a responsible government, or why would a responsible government create something like the Children's Aid Society here and make it an arm's length, untouchable by the very government legislature that created it, created it? How is that responsible government? These are all businesses. Okay? These are businesses that they created. And it's all about bringing food, if you will, or meat to the legal meat grinder. If you get involved with Children's Aid, and I've heard some horrific stories, and I've been to the Children's Aid, and I've interviewed them at the Children's Aid Society, and they agree that they basically have a bounty on children. But once you get the bounty on the child and you take the child, okay, obviously then the courts and the lawyers get involved in it. Because the courts and the lawyers don't produce anything, they need some way to get paid. They need something to feed off of. And they feed off of you. So they set up a system called the Children's Aid Society, which is given the okay to put bounty on children's heads, of which the state pays them X amount on the bounty. And then the family's dragged into the court system. Okay, and it grinds that family up. And the monies are paid to everybody in that system who feed off of it. Because without dragging somebody into that meat grinder, called the legal system, these people will starve to death. Because that's how they earn their living, by feeding off of others. It has nothing to do with law. It is exactly opposite of law. Because when you steal somebody's child and you put a bounty on them, that would be unlawful. When you drag a family in and destroy it, and then put the child off in a foster home, chances are you've destroyed the child. But everybody in that system now is getting paid off the bounty placed on that kid's head. So the family's been harmed, the child's been harmed. That's against the law. But it's perfectly legal. It's company business. That's all it is. It's the same damn thing with the police, and I hope some of you people out there are listening. I hope there's somebody from the Attorney General's office listening, because you're all well aware I do this show. In fact, I've invited some of you to be a guest on the show, and you've declined. Maybe someday you'll come on. Who knows? But the police are not accountable to the government that created them. That's mind-boggling. And when I was discussing this at the funeral yesterday, after the funeral, there was some pretty wide eyes there. But not once did I ever get what I used to get. You're crazy. Never heard it. Oh, that's some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. Never heard it. It was beautiful. And like, I've been at this a long, long time. And it's just very, very recently that I'm not hearing the cries of conspiracy theory or you're crazy or that can't possibly be. I'm not hearing that anymore. You know, I've said forever, we will win because there is no option. Possession is 90% of the law, and we possess the land, and we built everything that was ever built on these lands. Yet the so-called responsible government claims ownership of everything we ever built. How is that possible? Simple. You're slaves on the plantation. You're subservient to the state, the company. And we got to get over that. But people seem to be coming around. And I've said this so many times probably too, but every time I repeat myself, I think of Reagan. Not Reagan, I think of Bush Jr. there. I saw a clip of him always repeating. And he says, we got to keep, repeating this to get the propaganda into your head. Right? Same difference. Okay, that's bad propaganda. This is good propaganda. That's the only difference. So I know so many good researchers in the past who have thrown up their hands in just absolute disbelief and disgust that people couldn't open their minds to reality and truth. And I get that. And I encourage all of those people. I keep in touch with a lot of them that I know. That all of their knowledge and research is going to be wanted by the general public at some point. So don't just quit, right? And some of those people are coming back now. And I thank them for all their efforts over the years. And I know how disparaging it can get. I mean, people put their heart and soul into this, put their entire lives on hold to do this. To inform the public about what's going on. And finally, the public has been jerked around enough that they are starting to take serious looks at what's going on, and they're looking for answers. And that's where all of you listeners come in. You need to talk, teach, and shine the light. That's all that's required. So that we can get a big enough body of people together who can just simply say no. And I brought this up last night on this show, and that was about the Bundy Ranch, and that was a perfect classic example. And Waco would have never burned down if what happened at the Bundy Ranch had happened in Waco. Simply a group of people standing between the victim and the aggressor. That's the difference between, and that shows the progression of people. That shows that people are really starting to get what the state's all about. Where they didn't go to Waco, they did go to the Bundy Ranch. And they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They were non-aggressive. They were armed to the teeth, but they were non-aggressive. And they backed the feds down because they showed them no fear. You have no reason to fear those who are trying to harm you. If you fear those who are intent on harming you, you will be harmed. That's just the way it is. So if you are meek, you're going to get stomped on. Now, you don't have to wander around shooting at people and punching at them. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just a decision that has to be made. Do you care about the futures of your children and your grandchildren? Yes or no? If you don't, then turn this off and turn the TV on. Maybe there's a sports show on or something. Maybe there's a good talk show on or something. Who cares? But I do believe that people do care about their children and their grandchildren. They do care about the idea that they've been lied to since the day they were born. They do care about the fact that their forefathers came to these lands to try to get out from under the thumb of the feudal system. Those were hardy people. Those were people that got it, but they got hoodwinked. That's unfortunate, because when they thought they were coming to build the new land, the land of the free, all they were doing was building assets for the company. And that's unfortunate. What is fortunate is that they had the tenacity and the knowledge to know that they had to somehow try to get out from under the feudal system. I mean, I sometimes think what must have went through these people's heads, you know, to go and get on a ship, to go somewhere they didn't know where they were going. They were told they were going that way, to the new land, the land of freedom, a land of bounty, a land of opportunity. They saw what their opportunity was where they were. They didn't like what they saw. So they packed themselves and their families up and got on these boats. No idea what they're going to run into. No idea the hardships they're about to undertake. But they were strong enough to take the challenge. So when you compare what we're up against compared to what they were up against, this should be a bit of a cakewalk for everybody. Okay? I mean, you've got a house, you've got a roof over your head, you got food on your table still. You know, you've got electricity still. You've still got water. These are all things that didn't come easy to your forefathers that came over here. It was a tough go. They had the tenacity to give it a shot. And why did they do that? They did it simply because they cared about the futures of their children and their grandchildren. And they wanted to make sure that their lives were better or they had more opportunity than they had. And it's the same thing today. If you care about the futures of your children and your grandchildren, then you have got to stand some ground. You have got to get up on that moral high horse. You have got to talk to people. You have got to teach people. You have got to pass them the knowledge that you have acquired over whatever length of period you've been acquiring it. And you have got to shine the light on those who are causing you and the children and the grandchildren to come harm. It's as simple as that. This is not difficult. Nobody's asking you to go and try to build a log cabin in the middle of a snowstorm in February. You've got all the comforts that are required. You have all the tools that are required. All that you need to do is put them into action. That's it. Not difficult. Somebody's going to win the war. I suggest we be the winners. Because if we don't win this war, if we don't take back these lands, if we don't take control of our local councils, if we don't take control of our legislatures, if we do not start creating laws for the people, by the people, then you will continue to live under the rules and regulations of the legal system, which is the corporate system, which is the state system, which does not have your best interests at heart. So it's not difficult. It's just a simple decision. Simple decision. You know, I'm talking here away today, and all I see, and it's not up in front of me on the screen, all I see is that thing that D-Light put up on Facebook with that newspaper heading with the big front piece in there, the highlight, with UCY.TV on it. How friggin' difficult is that? I mean, it's brilliant. And I thank you, Dee, for doing that. I mean, that was absolutely brilliant. Let me see if I can dig out a, where did I have that here? This is actually on Debbie McBride's, so did Debbie McBride put this out, or did D-Light? I don't know, and it doesn't matter. But if you hit Debbie McBride, and it is the evolution of the revolution, really. It's brilliant, because this revolution has been going on a long time. There's been so many side streets and dead ends and deceptions and disinfo and controlled opposition groups on the internet, just like Rockefeller's boys set up to gather up those who knew something was wrong and to continue to deceive them. So the revolution has evolved to the point where most people now, I can't say that most people, but an awful large number of people have been through the disinfos and the controlled oppositions and the dead-end streets and have come out the other end. Very, very powerful people. It takes a lot to get through all of that. It really, truly does. It takes a great deal of dedication. Once you come out the other side, you are not likely to be deceived any longer. You're not likely to get hosed by some disinfo. You see how they write things. You see how they talk. You know, disinfo is full of truth. And then they deceive you. Same as the controlled opposition groups. The whole idea of controlled opposition is to have a very lively, vibrant conversation, but to keep it in an extremely narrow band. The fluoride, and these are all legitimate arguments. These are all legitimate problems that need to be solved, but they never get you to the root of the tree, and it's the roots that got to get cut. You know, if you stop fluoride being implemented in the water in a particular town, great, wonderful. But all that time you've spent trying to get the fluoride out, the main thrust of this third wave has been moving forward. So you've been over fighting this side fight, if you will, or nipping away at that particular limb on the tree. But you ain't got to the roots of it. We're going to cut that tree down. And I don't know, maybe we'll, I don't know what we'll do with the tree once we get it cut down. Doesn't really matter. But until that tree is cut down and killed and dead and never sprouts again, we will just see the same thing. You know, Michael Shaw, who's been fighting Agenda 21 over in California forever, he called it like whack-a-mole, I think it was. That, you know, you have this fight against whatever. I'll just stick with fluoride here. And you get fluoride out of your water, or they told you they took it out of the water, whether they did or not, who knows. So you're all happy now because you got them to submit to you. No, they just let you run with that long enough to keep you sidetracked over there. And then when it looks like things are getting too out of hand, then they'll capitulate or whatever, and then you will say that you won. And the council then can pat itself on the back because they did what you wanted. But they didn't do what you wanted because they're still pushing the third wave, which is Agenda 21, down your throat. So like Michael Shaw says, like whack-a-mole, you win this, but, a bunch of more moles stick their heads up. Because you won something, they're going to replace it with this, and this. So you could whack these moles forever, and you'll lose the war. Okay, you got to get the root of that tree. We got to get that out of the ground. We got to make sure that thing never grows again. And again, it's not difficult. I'm really saddened when I was talking to my wife's aunt yesterday, I'm thinking, these old folks who have she's gonna, I don't know how long she's gonna live. My wife's grandmother lived to be 94, and she was not an invalid by any stretch of the imagination. She was still extremely able and extremely sharp in the mind. And so this idea is that when you get to a certain age that you're no good for anything is another psychological thing that they drive on us. Another thing we were talking about yesterday was retirement. And my brother-in-law, who is a stonemason, damn good one too, he now believes that he's not supposed to retire. And I said, nobody's supposed to retire. Okay, I got a thing from D-Light here, just to interject. I'm sure Jules knows who's responsible for that particular mime or whatever they call it on Facebook. It's the first time I've seen it, and that was this morning, and I was just checking some stuff on Facebook, and trust me, when I saw that, I just stopped and started smiling. I mean, this to me is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to stick that back in right now, back into the chat for those that maybe didn't see it before, and asked again that if you are on Facebook, to just put that to everybody you know. We need to really raise up the listenership here as fast and as much as we can. And like I said before, I have been on a bunch of networks over the years, and this is the first place. Orion I was quite happy with, except they didn't even give us any notice when they shut down. And while they promoted themselves as a network that didn't censor, by the end of it, there was a bad case of censorship going on, and that was very unfortunate. So, while I liked Orion, and I haven't been on UCY.TV that long, I feel more comfortable here than I've ever felt anywhere else. So I want to thank Jules for doing everything she did, putting this together. She's done some very, very good work, and she's extremely dedicated to this, and we need to show our appreciation by spreading the word far and wide. The Sunday lineup here is phenomenal. I don't think you'll find a better lineup for a daily broadcast anywhere better than the lineup on Sunday here at UCY.TV. So, I have to refrain now. I was going to, when I found this mime, or whatever they call those things on Facebook, I was going to give a thumbs up. I said, I want to give a thumbs up to D or whoever put this thing together. And I said, I can't use that term anymore. Right? Because when I found out what thumbs up is, I said this on the show before, with the Pope there with his thumbs up. The thumbs up signifies the death blow. This really ticks me off, because terms that we've been using and words we've been using all our lives turn out to mean the exact opposite of what we thought they meant. That ticks me off big time. So I have to give a shout out, unless that's got some nefarious connotation attached to it. I don't know. But anyways, I'm gonna, what time we got here? We got a half an hour. I got talking a little bit about this third way last night, and so what I ran into here, it's under social democracy, and the development is through humanism, Age of Enlightenment, the French Revolution, utopian socialism, Marxism, ethical socialism, progressivism, reformism, gradualism, and welfare capitalism. These are all in the same group as third way. And then the last one, after welfare capitalism, we have third way, and then at the bottom of that we have modern European socialism. And that takes, if you haven't seen this, you got to go look at the video and watch it. And that's the Norman Dodds video. You can just put in Norman Dodds into my blog, which is again CanadianTruths.wordpress.com, and put in Norman Dodds. The Reece Commission is brilliant because it's the outing of the tax-exempt foundations. And it was, they said from the Ford Foundation, one of the guys said, well, we are charged with Sovietization of America. Okay, now all you got to do is go look at modern European socialism, and you'll see what they're doing here. Now, the ideas behind this is social democracy is social justice. Well, what's a social injustice? Private property is a social injustice. Is this what we want? What did our forefathers leave for? Because they didn't have the right of property, which is a scam as well, but they never got the right of land. They got the right of a investment portfolio called a property, which is also a fiction. So, but what I found, this is all about the third way, based on politics. But when you get looking around, if you go and you put in third wave, you put that in for, I don't know, let's just try a few things here. Let's put in health. Here we have third way health. Klein launches third way health changes. Third way in health care reform. So we have the third way in health. Now we could put in education, I guess. Let's try that out, education. Education, products, and events, third way. What Americans want from Democrats on education, the third way. Third way education. We also have third way religion. So this third way is the third way allegiance, Christian witnesses in the shadow of religious yada yada yada, the third way alliance. So everybody is involved in this thing. Okay. Now I could probably, let me try unions. Maybe we could put in police. Third way, police powers in politics by Robert Baldwin and Richard Kinsey, 1982. Third way, Google Books. It brings up the police again. Now, the police are all part of the international police now, and this is all about the Pope coming. Okay, because, all roads lead to Rome, and basically the Jesuit boss is coming to town. The boss is coming to town to see how it's going down at company headquarters, called the USA. You can put in the Pope. Let's put in the Pope. I put in poop by mistake, but the Pope does issue bull, right? So I guess that could be called poop as well. Pope Francis and the Just Third Way. Third Way, St. Peter's Summer Road, the Pope. So this third way is agenda for the third millennium, Pope John Paul II, and that's under third way listing as well. Let's see, military. Next steps to combat star creep, the cost of a top third way. The president's 2016 defense budget, third way. So, the third way is, I guess, you got to call it the Third World War, because everything has been internationalized without your knowledge, most of it without your knowledge anyways. So there's coming into America, the Pope, the Jesuit, the boss man, is coming here to give the thumbs up, which is the death stroke, to America. And we really got to take advantage of this somehow. I love this. The Third Way, the Nazi International European Union and Corporate Fascism. That's a book on Amazon.com. Everybody's involved in it. And it all comes out of the United Nations, of which the Holy See, while not a member, because the Holy See is itself not seen as a state, the Vatican is a state, but not the Holy See, because that's the Pope. But the Pope, this is supposed to be United Nations, but the Pope, the Holy See, he's invited to all of the meetings, and he is there. The Holy See is allowed to make suggestions in that. Okay, so the idea that the Pope's not involved in this is ridiculous. And he's coming to America. And I hope the American people have a lot of fun with this. I mean, I truly, really do. you got to take advantage of this one. You got to spread the word far and wide why the Pope is going to be wearing dog tags when he's in D.C. and giving the thumbs up, and giving the thumbs up when he's in Philly and Harlem and wherever else he's going. Okay, it's all about the Pope coming to America to see if his buddies like John Kerry, who signed the United Nations Small Arms Bill or agreement, have been working for him. I mean, nothing could be that signing of the UN arms agreement by the Secretary of State, John Kerry. I mean, if Americans don't get that, I don't know what they're ever going to get. I mean, why would the Secretary of State of the United States be signing on to the United Nations arms agreement when the United Nations is not a nation? And why would the Secretary of State make himself and the people subservient to a dictate from the United Nations? Simple. The United States is a state of the United Nations. Period. And does the bidding of it. And that's how you got Agenda 21. That's how you got Common Core. Everything bad happening in your lands and my lands is happening because it was constructed by the guys who constructed the United Nations, which are the most evil deceivers on the planet. So, I mean, why John Kerry is not being charged for treason immediately, I have no idea, because it is treason. He's breached the trust of the people. And I don't know that these guys are ready to say it yet or not. Kerry can say absolutely that he has not breached the trust of the people because the people ain't got nothing to do with what's going on. Okay? He signed the agreement on behalf of the United States, which is the company. So did he breach the trust of the people? In that case, in that sense anyways, no, he did not. But the people of the United States, not of the United States, the people of America, were deceived. Now, they could say, well, we told you what we were doing, and you didn't read it, so therefore we didn't deceive you. You deceived yourself. And they'll use stuff like that. And you'll say, well, you didn't disclose what you're up to. Sure we did. We wrote it all down. Everything we're doing, we write down. We tell you right in your face what we're doing. It just doesn't appear in your newspapers, and it doesn't come out of the mouths of the talking heads on the TV and the radio. But we did write it all down. And it's not up to us. We're not the media. They're supposed to distribute this stuff, not us. So you were told about it. All you have to do is read it. And nobody said no, so we just assume you consented to it. And that's why the word no is so friggin' important. If you don't say no, then they assume you have consented to what they're doing. And that's why I say you don't get into a negotiation with them. Ever. Because that is to mess with your brain some more. And when you're in a position of negotiation, that's where heavy doses of flattery are thrown your way to throw you off base, to make you believe that you're a really intelligent man or woman, and that if you look at things from their point of view, you'll see that what they're doing is really for the best for the communities and all the people on the planet. And so often people get suckered by this kind of flattery, and they end up jumping to the other side. Happens all the time. Find me a union leader that's not pushing third way or pushing the United Nations programs. They don't exist. Find me a chief of police that is not part of third way or pushing Agenda 21 or community policing on an international scale. Find me one. You won't. Because if they weren't, they wouldn't be the chief of police. Find me a politician that's not doing it. Find me a teacher that's not doing it. Find me a preacher that's not doing it. If you can find any of them, they are going to be very, very few and very far between. So what's that leave? It leaves the people. I mean, people did not, when they bring it in, early, I mean really early, very in your face, very graphic child sex education into your schools, and you hear people go, I don't agree with this. Well, I hope the hell not. Guys like Jared from Subway, the priests like it, some of the politicians like it. I mean, all pedophiles think it's wonderful. You guys, yeah, this is great. You subservient slaves, go ahead and pay for the education of the children as we brainwash them into thinking child sex is a good idea, and that we should get the children through sex education at the earliest possible age to be prepared for pedophilia. Now, when did a group of people walk into a school board meeting and say, that's it, you're out of here? We're taking this place back. These are our children. They do not belong to you. Well, that would be actually wrong, because they actually belong to the state. So the school board can say, get out of here, we're going to phone the police, who are also state actors. And they're going to come in and roast you up and run you off to the cells. And you'll say, what the hell just took place here? Reality took place. That's what took place. Didn't you read what they wrote down? Didn't you read that you're subservient to the state? Didn't you read that you're a subject of the state? Didn't you read that you have no power? How dare you come busting in here to our board meeting and tell us what we can and can't do with your child? The child is ours. The child belongs to the state, and the state will do whatever it wants with that child. Now, if that don't piss you off, I don't know what will. But that's the reality. And we got to fix that. And we got to fix it quick. Because as I've said all too often, they say, well, we wrote it down. Well, you didn't tell me about it. Well, that's not our responsibility. They'll say, well, of course it is. You've entered me into a contract without my knowledge. You've entered my child into a contract without my knowledge, without full disclosure. And without full disclosure, that is a case of deception. And deception is fraud. And fraud in their legal world is illegal. And the world of law that we're supposed to be following, which is no harm, no victim, no crime, is against the law. So they have no actual standing. The only thing that they have is force. take the force away, well, they're going to run for the hills is what they're going to do. Because they cannot do anything that they're doing to you without force. The color and force of law, the legal system, the corporate system, the company system, the state system, all the same thing. And that's why I like so much, and I didn't look into the Bundy situation that closely. I didn't have time, and it really isn't on the top of my list of things. But I did look at it long enough to see people do what they were supposed to do, and that is get in between the victim and the state and simply say the most powerful word that was ever created, and that is no. Anybody, everybody understands what no means. Use it. You don't show any fear to these people. They're not to be feared. They're very, very weak. If they were actually powerful, they wouldn't need the force to protect them. These people operate in the shadows, in the dark. They can't stand the light. And the idea of the force is to keep them in the shadows and keep you from shining the light. So we have a big education program or knowledge program to all of the military and all of the police forces. We got to get to those guys. We have got to explain to them in no uncertain terms that they've been hoodwinked and that they, in fact, are harming their own brothers and sisters. So it's not about being angry so much as in the I'll show them anger, or I'll shoot this or shoot that or do this or do that anger. No, what we need is a very quiet anger, an anger that it tends to freak everybody out. And that anger is one of we get it, the answer is no, and you cannot fear us. We do not stand in fear. Okay? And that when you got to get things done, and that goes way back when I was in Florida, and people were freaked out by my calmness. And I said, why wouldn't I be calm? Well, yeah, but you're going to go do this. Well, yeah, it has to get done. But you're not ranting and raving. No, I don't need to. That's stupid. Okay, that's anger. That is an anger that has lost control. That is a dangerous anger. That's an anger that's going to get your butt in trouble. No, we have to be very calm about this. We have to be very stern about this. But we just have to make the decision. The answer is no. You are not taking this man's land. You're not taking anybody's land. You're not taking people's children. The school will stop abusing the children now, or we're pulling the kids. If we pull the kids, you're out of work. You see? But see, our role is to feed the system. Everything in the system feeds off of us. If we remove ourselves from the system must die because it has nothing to feed on. So we must walk away from the system and ignore the system and tell the system no thanks. We get it. Took us a while, but we get it. And there's no turning back. And that's when they start the flattery, and that's when they start the media reports, that this group pulled their children, or this group didn't do that, or this group stood up for that group, and try to spin it out. But that propaganda is dead. It's over. This is our opening. This is our opening. This is our opportunity. And we must take it. We must act upon it. They can't survive without us. The system I'm talking about. The state cannot survive without your participation. And if we're participating in the system, then we really have no reason to complain of the system. We must just remove us from them. We must separate. This idea that the crown, the queen, and the crown, while being different entities, are inseparable. This idea that you, the man with the legs and the feet who can walk about, is a separate entity from your legal fiction and your dead corporate fiction identity. While they are separate, they are indivisible. Bull crap is all I got to say on that. They're absolutely indivisible, and we must divide them. I have a caller here for the last couple minutes. We're going to jump on it. Yeah, Vince.
Hey, Ron, how are you, brother?
I'm good. You?
I'm doing good. I am really enjoying you over here at UCY. I'm so glad you came over. Enjoyed your show last night, Canada Live. We Simon Cast as well as Game On here 3 times a week. And I'm just really proud to be part of UCY myself. And like you, when I first found it, I found a home.
Yeah. And, we've been around the track here. I just want to know, though, Vince, where do I send the check?
You send it. Hey, listen, go to the UCY homepage and look right there where you'll find a place that you can donate to UCY. Also, use the Amazon. If you buy a shop online, use UCY page there. Go to the top across the banner and you can find that. And that goes for anybody else listening.
Yeah.
I
appreciate this, Vince, but I can't say it enough. I have never really promoted networks before because I've always had questions, really, about the intent of some of the networks I've been on. There was too much disinfo for a lot of people to get through. I'm very happy with what UCY has done, and we need to promote it. It is not the biggest network on the internet. It needs to be the biggest network on the internet, or the most listened to network on the internet. And we do have a really good Sunday lineup here.
Awesome.
I'm proud to be part of it.
Incredible.
Yeah. So where are you from, Vince?
I'm fifth generation Arkansas from 1850, but I happen to be born over in Tulsa. But I like to call myself a Southerner. It's a country slash. I can't even say it now. I'm laughing. With a bit of a Western swing. My second home's Las Vegas. I was out there a year ago last April when Facebook filled up with the call for folks to come out there to stand with Cliven Bundy.
Uh-huh.
I went out there Friday the 11th. April the 12th was the standoff. I was there all night. I met some really great people. Jane was talking about Thomas Lacavera on RBN. Met him, Jason Patrick, PM Beers, a bunch of other people, and some big names that are out there. That guy, that India fellow, I can't even remember his name. I didn't even know who any of these people are. But spent all night standing outside the little camp trailer up there that so many of you see. And me and Jason Patrick was talking. And unbeknownst, Cliven's son, Ammon, was in there, and he was listening. So Jason and I were talking about we really need to kind of, find out who we are and keep an eye on. Because I figured, I really felt like there's going to people be shot. Now, when we all went down to the interstate down there to go get the cows back, Cliven, I was up on stage. I go around the world there on AP photographs, but I'm up there filming while Cliven's telling Sheriff Gillespie how cows eat cabbage. You should have seen the look on his face when he says, you got 1 hour now to lay down your guns. Because he thought he had a deal brokered. Man, he was so pissed off, and he had such a look of, I don't even know how to describe the look on his face, but hey, you can find a lot of videos shot there at Buckville.
If I can just interject for a second, who is telling who to lay their guns down?
Cliven Bundy told Sheriff Gillespie.
Okay, that's what I thought you were getting at, and that is exactly what needs to get done. Okay,
yeah.
And nobody got shot at the ranch. The people stood down the feds just because I call this sitting on your moral high horse. I mean, you guys got the moral high ground, right?
Yeah.
And you don't negotiate. You said, you got an hour to lay them down. Make a decision.
I'm going to tell you what. There was a lot of scared people there, and you know what? And people on the other side of that gate over there wearing them costumes with patches on it and holding all them big, powerful guns. Mm-hmm. I believe they got a little dose of fear themselves.
Well, absolutely, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. They bring in these heavily armed guys to fear you down, and you didn't fear. You stood. And it's like no, it's I don't just really quick, but I mean I learned this about dogs, and they are dogs. I have a dog coming at me. I know I can't run from the dog because he'll run me down, right?
Right.
So what am I going to do to the dog? Am I going to fear the dog? Well, why don't I get the dog to fear me? So I charge the dog and I growl louder than the dog. I say, "Come on, you dog, you growl. I'll growl louder, right?" And I back down every damn time.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. Talking to dogs, I was shaking like a dog shitting tax when we first went there. When we first got there on the interstate, the police line was blocking the medium. There was a turnaround right there. So I had me a little old cardboard sign my brother drew up with some calligraphy and it says media on it. And I crossed the interstate and then approached the state troopers and I said, "I've got questions for the people." And I walked up to that police line and they're like, "Don't come no further." I ain't kidding. I was scared to death. I didn't know whether I was going to get shot, tasered, or maced, or what. And then somebody hollered out, "They got them pinned down under the bridge," and everybody ran that way. And I was a good quarter mile on down the interstate down there for the underpass where the wash came out, and cowboys lined up, men, women, and children. I mean to tell you, there in the very beginning, there was such a cross section of people, and they came from all over the United States, and I believe there's people from different parts of the world as well. I remember. And there was no back down. Like you said, you can't turn tail and run from a dog because they'll bite you in the ass every time.
That's right. It's amazing what you folks did, because that's exactly what needed to be done, and that was a lesson for all people everywhere. We own the land. We built everything on the land. We have possession of it. And they tell us we don't own anything. Give it up. No, we don't need a bunch of shoot-em-ups. The Bundy Ranch was an absolute classic example of how to deal with that kind of situation. Now, had you been by yourself, Vince, and went there with your little sign up to the guy and said, whatever it would say, and he says, you step closer, and you'd step closer you're by yourself, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. The point right. is that there's enough people from different walks of life stood, and they couldn't pick them out as radicals. They couldn't pick them out as militia. These were just people for every walk of life. Vince, I want to thank you. I want to thank the listeners. I wish you would have called in sooner, Vince. I'm host Ron Stevens. This is Game On. Back on Tuesday night, 7 to 8. Hope to see you. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Have a great day.
Making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air. Fuck them back, it's only for